Brought to you by Tailored Wealth, helping business leaders live their version of a rich life.
Welcome to another edition of the Making Sense of Your Money podcast, where we cut through the financial noise and help business leaders to make smart, confident money decisions. Welcome to another episode of the Making Sense of Your Money podcast. This is episode number 17. I'm your host, Dan Pascone, founder and CEO of Tailored Wealth. And each episode features a trusted voice in the financial world, someone who works directly with high-level professionals to simplify the complex and turn strategy into action. And today I'm excited to introduce our special guest, which is Aditya Sahai, who is the managing partner at Silver Mile Capital. And he and his firm have great expertise and a really strong background in M&A work and capital raises. And I'm excited to have you. So Aditya, thanks so much for joining me on the Making Sense of Your Money podcast. Good to have you today.
Thanks for having me here and look forward to the conversation, Dan.
Yeah, likewise. So I know there's a lot that our audience is going to want to hear from you, especially given your unique expertise. So let's start off, if you could, just give like a 90-second overview of what you and your firm do, how you got into the space, and the types of folks that you work with.
Absolutely. So, we do mostly cross-border transactions within private markets with a deep focus on technology companies, specifically fintech, software, AI. We play in the emerging growth and the middle market layers, typically venture and sponsor-driven companies. We typically target deal sizes between 20 to 200 million. We transacted over 3 billion in financing so far across 4 years that we've been operational. And what got us into this was largely a focus and an interest in how capital works for innovation, and specifically how cross-border capital movements can have large outcomes with ambitious founders. So that's what got us going. Right now, we work with a variety of capital partners, including sovereigns, pensions, and direct investors on the growth equity as well as the venture side, and work very closely with a great set of founders who are building very cool stuff. And us having a direct kind of seat alongside them in terms of their rocket ship just makes us very excited with the kind of work we do.
Very, very cool. Yeah, that's very cool. There's obviously a big market for what you do now. How did you get into the business to start? Let's talk a little bit there. How'd you get into this space to begin with?
Right. So, my background is I was originally in public markets and it kind of started off pretty young. So I was doing that for a number of years. That eventually evolved into doing it on behalf of certain family offices. So we were doing long short equities, derivatives, that kind of thing. I had a good enough outcome there, did my master's. And while I was doing that, I came across a number of interesting folks who talked about this emerging opportunity within private markets, specifically tech companies. So it was their foresight that I kind of thought that there's something in it really, and decided to take the plunge. And, it was just on the back of COVID that, we decided to start up Silver Mile Capital as a firm focused on, like I said, cross-border transactions. So that's what got me into it. Things kept happening. We met different kinds of, folks, and eventually landed up some interesting transactions, mostly in the software and the tech-enabled platform side. And that gave us enough conviction that there's a lot of, depth in this market for us to carve a niche. And that's where we're at, That's our origin story here.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. So my audience knows this because I talk a lot about private markets. We've been doing a lot of content on private markets recently, so it's well timed that we have you on the show. And I too have a background in public markets, and while we sort of diversify with our clients and do a little bit of everything, we've been very, very keen on private markets as of late. So you've mentioned cross-border transactions. I want you to educate us a little bit about what that means and what's the value there.
Absolutely. So look, cross-border transactions in itself are a harder nut to crack. And, logically speaking, it's because due diligence is the ability to educate the counterparties and all of that. It's just the bar is a bit higher. But it all makes sense because your optionality and your, ability to drive better economics, as well as many cases, better partners kind of increases. This is very true for companies that trade globally, transact globally, and have avenues to access global markets. The way we kind of go about this is, we have this wide Rolodex of capital partners, which is described as being some of the top allocators to alternatives. So what we do is, when there's a deal to happen in terms of, any asset class, or let's just say any category that they're interested in, and they're looking at some of the best companies or category defining companies, and we go out there, leverage our, deep access and proprietary deal flow networks to find them relevant stuff and help them underwrite those companies, find the best way in, and then kind of work, monitor, and grow those, opportunities into outlier events. That's the ambition. That's the way we kind of go about these. And most of our stuff typically happens within three broad markets. So that's obviously North America, which is our core market for capital partners, alongside Europe, and most of our the companies I work with also happen to be in Asia, along with our sovereign partners. So it's a great combination. We've managed to ramp up over the years in terms of transacting across the pond on Europe, North America, as well as in Asia.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can see where your expertise and value lays there. What are some of the biggest challenges that you see, Aditya, when it comes to cross-border transactions?
I think the first thing would be just the understanding the law of the land and the regulatory regime. So that's number one. How do you navigate those? It's the world's changing faster than it was, ever before. So that is one of the main things. The second thing is, you have a whole host of due diligence. It just gets a little more complex and elongated when you're doing it more on a cross-border side. So that's second, as well as fast-paced market as technology is, and just the level of competition that you see in these markets, you have to be, constantly at it in terms of how much you understand businesses, business models, the changing competitive environment, and that kind of thing. So it needs a lot more effort, but I think all of that is worth it in the end in terms of the outcome and the opportunities that you can access and harness. So I think those are the most challenging part of our work, as well as the most exciting part of our work. And as you can imagine, because you need to keep track of different jurisdictions and deal activity and momentum and stuff like that. The onus is on us to be constantly on our feet in terms of, making sure that we're well informed, we're data driven, and we're keeping our network up to date, and it's working for us as well as for who we kind of transact and work with.
Yeah, so I know your space relatively well, and I know there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to deals like this. Tell us a little bit about what you do to what you look for in deals, how you source them, and then talk a little bit about like the communication workflows that you have, because there are a lot of different parties involved, obviously.
Right. So I think, our sourcing is predominantly twofold. We either rely on closed warm intros, which can come from a subset of existing backers. Those could be individuals, institutions, sometimes even families. So that's the important part. The second would be, any kind of events, conferences, as well as outreach campaigns that we might do based on our judgment and analysis. So that's typically how top of the funnel works for us. In terms of communication, again, it's a combination of in-person meetings, events, as well as some of these modern communication tools for, engaging with different sets of people. I think what we're very interested in is just looking at the why someone started it out. Is there a personal pain? Is there something they've identified which acts as a big gap in the market, etc.? As well as, is there any unfair advantage, maybe not now, maybe in the future, which those guys might have, which will, because in any case, there's things that fall apart, there's things that don't go your way. So what will keep you ticking in those times when there's uncertainty? So what gives, power to your resilience? And I think I also look at, has there been any event in your life which just makes you tap into that, extra potential that every human has? So that's something that's why I kind of look at your personal story as well very closely. Someone who's kind of starting it out, doing this. So those are important things that I kind of look for. In many cases, there have been companies whose decks haven't been perfect, whose metrics haven't been perfect, but it's just, something about them in terms of how they articulate, or, their ambition and passion that kind of speak for itself, which makes us say, okay, there's something in it. It's something that the market and the public will see eventually. And I think that's something we should go after. So we do, have a lot of those instances as well as instances where we believe that there's, someone who's identified a trend ahead of time, or there's, a certain way a market could potentially evolve. And how do we bring those ideas and opportunities to our, captive institutional client base? So those are some of the reasons why, people stick with us and look at us for bringing them some interesting, innovative ideas that can fetch up, some interesting outcomes.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love what you said there about sort of digging even beyond the metrics and beyond the pitch deck to sort of understand the founder, the team, the why. And then, what I heard you say was, evaluating their resiliency factor, right? If you almost had like a resiliency metric that you could evaluate, because any of us that have been entrepreneurs know that that is absolutely critical. And, sort of your life story helps to frame that and is a pretty good indicator in my experience of, how you will perform across ups and downs, which, if you are an entrepreneur for long enough, you will certainly have many of both. So I thought that was really, really insightful, and I appreciate you sharing that. Aditya, tell us a little bit about where you see your industry going. Obviously, there's so much that's happening right now relative to technology and AI, and you're investing in a lot of that. But tell us a little bit about your industry and how you see it evolving over the next 5 to 10 years.
I think technology is taking over a lot of the things that we used to do. So timelines are getting cut. I think output is more or less, getting ramped up. We're also seeing different ways of making a deal happen by way of, interesting ways of positioning or finding counterparties to work with, as well as just, resolving any queries that eventually turn up on the diligence phase. So there's different interventions that technology, finds its applications across the deal life cycle, which I think for most parts is just, making it more efficient and making it more worthwhile for folks like us to, focus on getting the job done, which is interesting. I think the onus is still on the human side to make sure that technology is giving what you need and how you want it to work, as well as any evolution loops and feedback cycles that it goes through has to, again, pass through a human, kind of monitoring it. So it's still a hybrid world that we see in with growing applications, and we'll continue to use different technologies as they get developed or as they kind of make themselves available to us for our deal making, while still focusing on the fundamentals, because we will not rely on origination for technology to do anything of that. We will still focus on our warm networks and the hard work we've put in to build those channels out. But maybe steps that follow, whether it's analysis or benchmarking and some of those stuffs, that's where technology will help us.
Love it. Yep, makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. All right, so we're gonna switch gears now. We're gonna focus a little bit on you. We'll let the audience get to know you. So this is always a really fun part of the podcast. I call it the lightning round. I never tell guests about it ahead of time because we want it to be super organic and natural. I'm gonna give you some questions, Aditya, and then all I ask is that you give us the first thought that comes to your mind. It could be a one-word answer. It could be, a deeper explanation on it. You ready?
Sounds good.
All right, let's do it. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
What's one tool or piece of technology, so it could be hardware or software, other than your computer or your phone that you can't live without?
Can I say my car?
Yeah, sure. We can. Let me guess. You're a Tesla driver.
Yes.
All right, we got it. Do you have a favorite quote or phrase about money or success?
I think it would have to be on compounding, the power of compounding.
Yeah. Compounded interest. Albert Einstein said it long ago, the eighth wonder of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Love it. All right. Do you have a favorite book on finance or business?
Yeah, there's one actually, The Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, which is pretty good, about a guy who kind of used instinct to, trade stocks and stuff like that. That was interesting.
Very cool. I like it. I'll have to check that one out. Do you have a personal hack that you could share with us?
Ability to, get into, I guess, deep hard work mode by watching Rocky Balboa movies.
Now you're speaking my language. All right, so we're gonna watch Rocky to get into deep hard work mode. I like that. Usually makes me want to go run through a wall or work out, but I like that. That's a good one. Really good. I haven't heard that one before. That's good. It's good. What's one bucket list item that you've already accomplished?
Stepping into 40 countries the last 3 years.
40 countries in 3 years. All right, very cool. Anyone stick out for you?
I would say Scotland.
Scotland, that's on my list, actually. Very cool. That's on my list. What's one business or financial milestone that you're working towards?
A certain echelon in terms of monthly, net profits for a firm.
Very cool. Very cool. And lastly, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
I would say focus a lot on the people who you spend time with and how you add value to them and gain value from them. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, I love that. We're always trying to add and gain value from people around us and put more people around us that can add value and we can add value too. That's well said. All right. And Aditya, if our listeners want to connect with you, collaborate with you, potentially work with you, how and what's the best way to reach out to you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn and email. So, you can find me on LinkedIn as well as my email, which is aditya@silvermile.uk.
Very cool. Very cool. We'll put that in the show notes. That's great. Well, listen, Aditya, thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed the discussion. Thanks for your insights today. And that's it for another episode. As always, keep your strategy sharp, your goals clear, and your money working as hard as you do. Cheers.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.